Holy shit, this is getting out of control. Welcome back to another Dorohedoro, everybody. First and foremost, I do want to say thank you to my patrons. Also, I have an extra special shout out this week because I did get a new patron, Max13. Also, speaking of my patrons, there will definitely be an uncensored version of this video up on Patreon because holy crap is some of this getting out of control. Like, you'll see. And now on to the video. A completely unprecedented video, one that's never happened before. We cover 3 volumes in one video. It's only one more than last time, it's really not that big of a deal. We start with Fujita becoming visible in the elevator after the Invisible Man died and his magic wore off. It's pretty anticlimactic because they just come to an uneasy agreement to travel together. Ibisu is with En's body, and she's going to make the very strange decision to heal Dokuga and then use him as like her little helper, all in the hopes that he just won't get his memory back. And I know that Ibisu kind of needs help, but this is a really bad call, Ibisu. Also, the professor goes out flying with Johnson, and he gets dropped and falls into a house filled with devils, and in order to hide him from the devils, Haru hides him inside of her own body. So now with all the pieces in place and everybody trapped inside the department store or whatever that place is, for pretty much the foreseeable future. I mean, they're still trapped in here at the end of these 3 volumes, and I could see them being in there for the rest of the manga, to be serious. I don't know. But anyway, we get what could be a very touching scene between Shin and Noi, and he comes up and he like caresses the side of her face and stuff, all just to distract her from the fact that he's about ready to split her head open and put those little devil thingies inside of her. Now, Nikaido is still with Risu and Asu, and Nikaido's more devil than ever, and Asu's going to attempt to teleport them out of there, but because they're inside of the store, he can't get them out, and because he needs to use his eyes to see to get them out, to teleport them out, he ends up basically burning the eyes right out of his head. And then he's going to lose all of his fingers because they're immediately attacked by a bunch of people with tubes stuck in them. Now, speaking of tubes, Shin gets one attached to his ankle, and it won't come off, and it eventually starts to snake its way up through his body. And for a manga that I have repeatedly called out for not having any stakes or real tension because everything's immediately undone like a chapter or 2 later, there's still some stuff in here that, like in the last one, that guy being chopped up, that's like nightmare fuel or just affecting in general. And just the thing like, it's creeping its way up through the inside of his body. It's just kind of affecting. Maybe it's just because I have a personal affection for Shin that this one was a little bit worse than others. I don't know. Either way, now he's under the control of the tube, and he's going to slaughter all of En's family. Except for Noi, who shows up later. She really just takes a hammer to the head. After that, the tubes come for Risu and Asu, leaving Nikaido all by herself. So she changes her clothes. Just wait for it, it gets worse. When suddenly Nikaido runs into Kaiman. Wait, what? Where the actual f*** did he come from? Like, the last time we saw Kaiman he was the boss, and he was wrapped in a suit thing. At this point, I can't see any logical reason how Kaiman could be back, period, and not be in the form that we last saw him in, which was that weird suit-looking thing. Also, he has this extremely limited memory of who he is and what just happened to him in his life, like way more limited than Kaiman should actually have, because he was around for a lot more than he remembers being around for. Anyway, Nikaido's going to go ahead and explain everything to him, getting him completely caught up. Meanwhile, a devil shows up, and he's going to explain to them that if they want to get out of the store, then they need to go find a very specific item, the store knife. Also, at this point, we're going to pretty quickly find out, as Nikaido figures it out, that this isn't the Cross-Eyes boss from before that we would expect him to be, because that was who Kaiman was. No, this is actually a whole new person, entirely new being that just was created from the decapitated, pickled head of Kaiman from before. So that head has somehow been regenerated and resurrected to be this new being, this new Kaiman that we have here. Explaining why he's here, why he's not in the form that we would expect him to be in, and why his memory is the way it is. So at least that's solved. Also now, either this revelation in and of itself, or just the fact that she's turning more and more into devil, something inside of Nikaido apparently breaks. Because for the rest of this, her facial expression becomes like a literal meme that could read, "When the drugs take hold." And she will literally look like this for the duration of this read, at least. Anyway, they stumble into the house that the devils were using to travel here. And in the house, they learn that the store knife is with Haru, and they use this then to track down Haru and find her, which then is going to trigger a fight scene between Haru and Nikaido. And I've said in the past that the fight scenes in this manga are extremely good. They are drawn extremely well, and they track well. They look good, they're easy to follow, and they're just good in general. This is a turning point in the manga where they now have all of those qualities that I said before, but now they start to become longer and just feel so much more epic than they did before. Like, for real, this fight is not several pages long, it's like several chapters long. The fight is essentially so long that it will have to be intercut with other things that are happening in the story, like the severed heads of En's family all rolling around the room together trying to figure out what they're going to do next and what their next plan of action will be. But the fight will ultimately end with Kaiman getting killed by being melted, just as Nikaido gets the knife. And right then, when it looks like she's going to die too, she uses the time box. Now, back with the severed heads, they have a plan. And Turkey's going to kill their body parts, essentially making a pile of dead meat, so that he can then use the dead meat of their body parts to make an Ibisu doll to go find Ibisu, which, needless to say, doesn't make for very good materials for the doll. And then they give En's devil tumor to the doll in a last-ditch Hail Mary pass of an effort to try and get the En's devil tumor to En's body and Judas's ear, all at the same time. What could possibly go wrong? Meanwhile, back with all of the devils, the head devil, the lead devil, leader devil, whatever he is going to tell the story of the creation of everything, really. In the beginning, there was hell and him. And out of boredom, he created the sorcerers. But because he created them, they bored him. Do you still feel that way? Sometimes. But it was right around that time that he found an entirely new world called the Whole. But that's enough of that for now. Now, back with Nikaido. Having gone back in time, she runs into herself and Kaiman, so she can give the store knife to herself and Kaiman. Then she goes back forward in time to where she was before, where she runs into herself and Kaiman. But because she went back forward in time and now there's two of her, one of her has to poof out of existence so that it's just her and Kaiman. Now you might ask, why, when she goes forward in time, does one of her poof out of existence so there's only one Nikaido? Well, when she went back in time, she was able to have a conversation with herself and even give herself the knife. To this I say, don't ask questions. Also, the professor's with him now. Meanwhile, Shin is running around with what I can only really refer to as the source of all evil. And they're going to run into Ibisu and Dokuga. And Dokuga and Shin get into a fight. I must say, Dokuga puts up a way better fight than I would ever expect him to in this situation. Like, way better than anyone in En's family did. And just then, the doppelganger shows up. I mean the doll. And the doll somehow falls into En's body bag with the devil tumor and Judas's ear. Like, really? And I thought something was going to go wrong. And I'm not even going to lie. I never even really cared for En. Like, I've never even liked him much as a character in general. So when he just kind of went away for, like, I don't know, the last God knows how long, and he's just been missing from the story, I didn't miss him. Not even a little. Like, Not at all. But things have been on such a hopeless downward spiral for this entire story and all of the characters involved in it that I was actually pretty hyped when he showed back up in the story, and it felt pretty epic in general. Anyway, he turns Shin into a bunch of mushrooms, and we flash over to Nikaido and crew, and they're going to get attacked by the source of all evil, which Kaiman gets plugged by a tube, and Nikaido cuts off of him just as something slips inside of him. Now Kaiman begins his transformation into what will probably become pretty close to his final form, I would imagine. Because what slipped into him was the consciousness of the man who started this all, Kaiman. Also, while fighting the source of all evil, Nikaido's clothes spontaneously explode. I think it's because of her devil powers, but who the f*** knows at this point. Ooh, also Risu shows up. Anyway, the evil guy grabs Nikaido, Kaiman gets the store knife, cuts off his head and arms, and he escapes with Nikaido, leaving Risu, the professor, and Kaiman behind. Now, there's going to be a little bit of silliness and some running back and forth with En and Dokuga, and there's going to be a bit of silliness with the devils, and they're going to go get Asu, and they're going to fix all of his problems because they need some gyoza, which is going to cause an accident that's going to cause Noi to regenerate so that she'll be available to regenerate the rest of En's crew. You know, we're going to undo all the damage that we'd previously done in the past couple of volumes so that everybody will be completely healed and back to tip-top shape like they were before, undo any and all consequences that may have happened recently. Pretty typical Dorohedoro stuff, actually. But anyway, now back with Kaiman and them. Kaiman is now basically just and he knows everything, kind of, and exactly where to go and what to do, and he knows where the evil's going, so they're going to hurry up and they're going to get there first and kind of wait for him or head him off at the pass, something like that. Also, real quick, speaking of Asu and gyoza, if you open up your pamphlet, we'll start with page 9. In the hole, there were these things called humans. And the devil guy took some of the humans back to hell, and he left some of the sorcerers there in the human world. When he came back centuries later, there was a mountain of dead human bodies from where the sorcerers had killed them and piled them up. The bodies were so befouled by the sorcerers that they wouldn't even rot. Sorcerers were a lot wilder back then. Centuries later, the mountain was now a deep, black pit of death. And over the years, that pit developed a consciousness and became self-aware. And it has but one desire. Anyway, that's enough of that. Anyway, back in the main story, after running into the evil that we now know is the consciousness that developed from the mountain of dead bodies that turned into the pit in the hole, Dokuga then goes and runs into En, and he's going to attack En, kidnap Ibisu and Judas's ear, because he's going to go take him back and he's going to try and resurrect his friends. Needless to say, this does not go well for him, and En turns him into mushrooms, and then goes to get him. Just then, him and Ibisu are snatched up by the evil and taken away. And Kaiman collapses, I think, and comes out of him? I'm not sure, so maybe this isn't Kaiman's final form? Although I would still say that I think this is pretty close to what Kaiman's final form is actually going to end up being. By close to this, I mean the merging of Kaiman's consciousness with Kaiman, and he'll have the lizard head and he'll be like this kind of person. Or if that isn't it, then Kaiman will somehow find a way of passing on or gaining peace, and we will find a way to get the OG original Kaiman with his kind of original idiot personality back. One or the other. As far as Kaiman's character is concerned in the end, if anything else happens, I will be truly shocked. Anyway, we see Noi healing the severed heads, when suddenly the evil shows up carrying Nikaido and Ibisu and Dokuga, and maybe Nikaido's boobs disappear. The end. And this is leaving me in a pretty tough spot. I don't know if it's good enough to be a 9, but it's definitely better than the last one. I gave the last one an 8.5, so I've got to up this one. And you know what? In all fairness, I think I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give this read through a 9 because I blew through all 3 of these once I got going. This was going to be a 2-volume read like the last videos have been, and I just kind of kept a right on go. I literally tore through them. It's on a roll, and it was really good and it was really fun. I had a blast with it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give it a 9. I think that's appropriate. Anyway, as always, everybody, the link for my Patreon is in the description below. The link for my Discord is in the description below. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.